Do not enter the arena at any time.
Good afternoon everybody, and welcome to the flight of the Eagle Show. My name is Chris, and along with James, who's up on our launch platform, David, who's on the back of the mound there, and a few feathery friends. I'm hopefully going to entertain you for the next 20-25 minutes or so. First bird that we're going to have a look at in this show is Henry, and Henry is a bald eagle. And if you came to the first show, then you'll have met a bald eagle. We didn't see him for very long actually. Archie, with a lovely white head and white tail. He was actually just charging around the sky all over the place. But this, well, most people don't think he is a bald eagle, but he is. But he's a baby bald eagle, so he will eventually get that white head and white tail, and that will arrive at roughly about 3 to 5 years of age. Now Henry is actually Archie's son. He's about 16, 17 months old. He spent the last 6-7 months flying around on the side of a mountain in North Yorkshire, so he already has all of his flying skills underneath his belt, and he's now starting his career here at Warwick Castle. And he's been here for about 3 weeks now. I would love to say that he's a bit of a chip off the old block. His mum and his dad both work here at the castle. Henry's first week went wonderfully well. We actually had a lovely wind blowing up the hill, which is our normal prevailing wind, and the eagles often will go out, charge around on the backside of the castle. And Henry's first week was wonderful, and to be honest, the transition from moving from the side of a mountain to working at a busy tourist attraction is a bit stressful, I suppose, to begin with, and that's why I brought him right into the arena, so that you can have a look at him, and he can also have a look at you. And his first week went wonderfully well. Second week didn't really go according to the plan. He actually flew off down the river road. We were expecting him to come up over the top of the castle, and we didn't see him for a week. Yeah, so he's already had a week off in his first 3 weeks of employment, which doesn't make him employee of the month. Now normally when we lose an eagle, it is the baby eagles. They get lifted up into the air with a rising wind. They go up into the heavens. They come down somewhere else, and they sort of expect us to be there with rats and mice in their pockets. And to be honest, we're not really very far behind him. He has a radio transmitter on him, and we can track him wherever he goes. And when we got to the spot where the little radio transmitter was going crazy, we found the radio transmitter. Henry had bitten it off. So we were, in the dark. The good thing about flying big eagles here at the castle, everyone knows that we fly massive big eagles, and whenever one of these birds comes down onto ground level, I guess within a 50 or 60 mile radius, we get a phone call, and the phone call goes something like this. Have you lost an eagle? Yes, we've lost an eagle. Well, I've got one on my bird table and it's scaring all the other birds away. Can you please come and collect it? And that's sort of what we do. But in the case of Henry, he disappeared off the face of the earth for a whole week. We had no sighting, no tip-offs to his location, and we were actually starting to worry that maybe something bad had happened to him. Maybe he'd eaten a dead animal on a road. Often the eagles will scavenge dead animals. They get hit by vehicles themselves because they're not really very fast at getting off the ground. And we were really starting to worry, but on the 8th day, as we were flying the Stellus eagles, those are the really big ones with a black and white bodies with a big yellow beak, as they were flying up to the top of Guy's Tower, there was a little black speck in the sky, and it was Henry, and he rediscovered his love of Warwick Castle. Now that's not because he thinks it's architecturally brilliant, it's just that whilst he's been out for a whole week, he's not had anything to eat. Now I don't want you to worry too much about that. These are birds that live in North America, Canada and Alaska. When there's a blizzard, he's going to sit there for a whole week and not have any food at all. And generally they don't eat over a 24-hour period. They lose 1 ounce of body mass. And as he came back 7 ounces lighter than he went, then we can only presume he's had nothing to eat. So he now thinks Warwick Castle is brilliant. And that's just because he's now starting to understand that food is actually important to him. But they are, as I say, capable of going many, many days. Now, when we first brought Henry here to the castle, next year the show is actually moving down onto the river. So I've actually been throwing food into the river, and in the wild the bald eagle would normally take a fish off the surface of the water. Once he's actually established that, and he is pretty good at using his feet, then as you've seen, I'm throwing these bits of food up into the air, just so that Henry can, well, have a little bit of a challenge. It's a bit like throwing Scooby snacks at dogs, actually. They love it, and they just keep getting more and more. And he will keep doing this until, quite literally, he can't see his feet. So on the front of his chest, he has a big bag, which is called a crop, and I could keep throwing food up into the air all day long. This, incidentally, doesn't mean that he can chase little birds around the sky and catch little birds. He's way too big for all of that kind of stuff, and in the wild he is just a fisherman. Anyway, let's give Henry a big round of applause. He's done very, very well. So he's going to be here for about 5 years now until he's an adult bird. But the next bird that we're going to have a look at is sort of coming up to be an adult. We're going to have a look at an Egyptian vulture. His name is Frank, and Frank gets paid to fly around over the tops of people's heads with a couple of inches to spare. But I have to warn you in advance, the couple of inches to spare is open to artistic interpretation, which essentially means that if Frank looks as though he's going to fly into you, he probably is. Okay, so now, it's not entirely Frank's fault. So normally we start all of our birds' career on the side of a mountain up in North Yorkshire with the wind blowing up the hill. The birds very, very quickly learn how to use the wind and understand about health and safety, certainly about flying into solid objects. But Frank didn't go to North Yorkshire. Now that's not because we didn't like Frank, because I really do like Frank. He's got a really good attitude. Very angry little bird. But he is very interesting. But he didn't go to North Yorkshire primarily because he doesn't have a waterproof jacket. And in North Yorkshire, in the midst of winter, it essentially rains pretty much every day. So we had to train Frank here at the castle. So we started his career in the large field car park, and that's a big flat area. So I sent Frank off, and as he's going off in the opposite direction, you shout, "Frank!" Show him a bit of food, and he turns around and comes back. And from there, we then have to build an exercise. So today, we've got the wind blowing down the hill, which doesn't help at all as far as Frank is concerned, and he will be thinking that this is a bad day at the office. And now he's about to show you his angry side. So Egyptian vultures are quite small, and in the wild they spend a lot of the time complaining because the big vultures get to eat first. If Frank thinks the pay and conditions are against him, then what he does, he lands on the floor and bites me in the leg. And that's what I like about him. He's got plenty of character, but essentially the big vultures in the wild will bite him back, and he would learn very quickly not to pick on anybody that's bigger than himself. So what I have to do, I have to ignore bad behaviour, concentrate on good behaviour, never ever give reward for Frank biting me in the leg. And once he's had his little temper tantrum, then he generally will revert back to going back to work. Now, as I said, he is a small vulture, and being small is always a complicated issue. It does give you extra mobility, and being smaller, the vulture can actually fit into some interesting places. And in the wild, Frank is a bird that will happily kill things. He'll wander into nesting colonies of birds. He'll eat baby birds that are unattended. But if you're a big vulture and you're going to see an Andean Condor in this show with a 10'6" wingspan, you don't really have to do that kind of stuff. You're big and you're always at the front of the queue. So being at the back of the queue for Frank is a frustrating place. When he does get there, essentially there's not much left over. So he actually has a very, very, very narrow beak with which to get into the last bits of morsels of flesh between the bones that the big vulture's beaks can't actually get into. So he is actually perfectly designed, but if you ever want to see an Egyptian vulture truly excited, and I'm talking a little bit like a Jack Russell that's bouncing up and down wanting to go out for a walk at tea time, what you do is show him an egg. And now, the first time I showed Frank an egg, I could tell that he wanted it. He's like, "Ooh, I'm really, really excited." He rolled it this way, he rolled it that way. He couldn't actually break it. He couldn't open his beak wide enough to get the egg in. Sometimes with small eggs, they just crunch them. But when you get to a chicken egg size and beyond, going up to the size of an ostrich egg, for instance, then they've got to get smart. And this is actually a really clever bird. What they do, it took him about 10 minutes to work it out, but he's going to bite me again, by the way. He picked up a stone and then threw the stone at the egg, and that's how they actually break eggs. They actually are very, very clever indeed. Now, we did always want him to fly around the arena here, and of course, getting the bird to fly around the arena when the wind's blowing up the hill is obviously a little bit more easier than it is today. There's not much wind to work with. But when Frank was presented with this task, he actually learned this also very, very quickly indeed. We had excellent circumstances. We had the wind blowing up the hill. It was probably November or December when we got Frank into this arena. And in November and December, the castle is actually pretty quiet. Mostly visited by coach operators, essentially bringing in 50 or 60 grannies at a time. They sit on the benches, watch the bird show, then they're off to Stratford-upon-Avon. And honestly, the first time that Frank saw 50 old age pensioners, he just started circling round them. And it took me a couple of days to work it out, but he is just naturally attracted to anything that's slightly past its sell-by date. And grannies go purple, don't they, in winter time? So he should have done this by himself, and all I've had to do is just tweak it a bit. Now, of course, I hope you all know that vultures are, well, very interesting birds. They're very, very necessary in the world. They eat dead animals that potentially could spread disease, and most vultures are critically endangered. And so it is important that we breed them. We actually have 6 Egyptian vultures. They all have a similar temperament, by the way. And Frank was bought from a zoo in Germany, well, we trained him here, and he was actually supposed to be a boy. We've got him to go with a female that we have that is surplus, and we want her to breed. We've just recently had his DNA results back, although he was sold to us as a boy. He is actually a girl, which is getting very complicated because they don't have any obvious dangly bits that you can say, oh, that's a boy. Anyway, so we've got an extra female here anyway. He's very, very beautiful, aren't you, Frank? Let's give him a big round of applause. That means something to Frank. That means that we no longer require Frank, and we're heading on to the next bird. So the next bird is actually, well, up here on the mound. So we're looking at the oldest part of the castle, which is the mound. You can see there's a tower, there's a windowsill, and the clapping noise is Frank's cue to go that way, and for the next bird to arrive on the windowsill. And as you can all quite clearly see, there's nothing there. I know that Ernie's definitely up there. He's obviously missed his cue. Ernie! Ernie! Oh, here we go. Right. So this is Ernie, and Ernie is a Veros or Milky Eagle Owl, and he's actually the youngest member of the team. So the last 6 months of Ernie's life have been very, very, very exciting indeed. He's hatched from an egg, about 75 millimeters across, or 3 inches if you're in old money, and on a rich diet of rats and mice and lizards and bugs and beetles, young Ernie has grown to this enormous bird in a very short space of time. And I suppose a bit like all youngsters, he thinks the world is absolutely wonderful. And in looking around the edge of the arena, I can see there are many happy, smiling children. And of course, quite clearly, your mums and dads are looking after you very, very well at the moment. Now, it is relevant for the story, children, so I do have to give you some bad news. When you get to about 12 or 13 years of age, your mums and dads are going to turn against you. Now don't worry, it's quite normal and natural, and essentially they just want you to leave home and get a job. Now, Ernie is in a similar place. His mum and his dad used to worship every little twig that he sat on, but at 6 months of age, they are getting a bit fed up of young Ernie on the mobile phone all the time, slamming doors in the nest, and they want him to leave home. And Ernie, honestly, is going absolutely nowhere. He's very happy with the delivery service, and he's going to stay there for as long as he can. And unlike me and you, that grow up at different stages of our life, there is actually a very definite day when Ernie is grown up. And the last thing to grow on any bird usually is the wings. It's an enormous wingspan for Ernie, about 5 feet across. All of those feathers, whilst they're growing, are filled with blood, and that means that even if Ernie wants to fly, he can't fly because his wings are too heavy. But when he gets to the right size, and that is the day that he's grown up, then the blood retracts back into the body, his feathers become hollow and light, even the skeleton of a bird becomes hollow and light, and at that point he's ready to train. And that's the question that I get asked when, at what age do you start training birds? As soon as that blood retracts back into the body, then his mum and his dad would stop feeding him for a couple of days, and then Ernie has to follow mum and dad around. And they will be taking him to watering holes, rough patches of ground, and of course there Ernie would learn his hunting skills. Now I hope you all know that owls normally only hunt at night time. To show you an owl hunting, Ernie is very, very happy to do this in broad daylight because he's actually a captive bred bird. These originally, the Veros and Milky Eagle Owl, come from Kenya. Ernie was born in a very exciting place called Wolverhampton, which is a bit wild, but not the sort of wild that he's used to. So I'm going to try and show you a hunting scene. So to set the scene, we're going to put you in a fairly natural position. See the big tree over here, bottom right-hand branch. If you just sit there for a couple of moments and relax. So each bird has a different routine. I came up with an idea for this part of the show, gave the idea to the castle's management. Normally they go, yes, we'll have a little bit of that, the public will love to see that. But when I suggested the next thing, to my horror, they just said, no, we don't want to see things like that here at the castle. Now, I like to get my own way eventually, and managers aren't always right, are they? So I'm just going to do a quick survey. I want you to answer me really loudly. Would anybody at this point like to see Ernie catch a live rat? It's very encouraging to see so many bloodthirsty children and adults in one space. Now, children, you won't know this yet. There's always someone in your life that's going to spoil your fun. Take a look in that direction there. There's a woman hiding behind a box. She's called Doris. She's by herself. She has no friends. Nobody likes her. She's in charge of health and safety here at the castle. And it's essentially that woman that says we can't throw out a live rat. Let's boo her, everybody. Boo. Now, we did talk at great length for at least 4 or 5 minutes on an alternative. I'm not sure how it works. It's something to do with paperwork. But she says we can throw out a small child. Okay, we're on plan C then. Plan C is not quite as exciting as throwing out a live child or a live rat. We're going for a piece of food on the lawn. Now, don't be disappointed. He's going to kill it, and he's going to make sure he gets his feet on it. That's the important thing. So I hope you know that owls sneak about at night time. The soft feathers make no noise. So essentially he's sneaking up on his breakfast. When he gets there, he has to throw his feet out beyond his face, and he will quite literally punch it into the floor. So that's what we're looking for, the fancy footwork at the end. I'm going to throw a piece of food onto the floor, keep an eye on it, and then watch Ernie's feet as he quite literally is going to nail it to the floor. It would help if you're looking in this direction as well. He says, Ernie! Ernie! Thank you. Right, okay. Now, he is facing the opposite way, and his head is on back to front at the moment, which is bizarrely quite normal, but let's see what happens. Oh, look at him, he's turning around, he's like a coil spring. Here we go! Go, go, go! Feel the energy from the crowd! I know he didn't get it. Right, just let me, we need to talk, okay? So basically, that was a huge build-up that I gave you there. And to say I'm disappointed is an understatement, alright? So if you land beside a rat in the wild, it's not going to be there when you bend down and pick it up, okay? I'm looking for focus at this point, aggression. You just totally wrecking my show at this point. Go back up into the tree, that was absolutely pathetic. Don't do the awe thing with me, man. I know what you're all thinking. You're thinking, this owl is rubbish. And he is. You've got to work with the material you've got. Actually, having said that he's totally rubbish isn't entirely true. He has done something amazing. I don't know whether I dare tell you this, but about 10 days ago, in front of about 2,500 people, I threw out a piece of food onto the lawn. Now, normally, this owl sits still all day long. This day, when I threw the food out, Ernie's in that tree and he's going like this, bobbing his head from side to side, up and down. He looked like some crazy disco dancer in the tree. Took off, ignored the food, which I thought was a point of interest, flew across the bottom side of the arena here, straight to the top of that tall, thin tree in the courtyard, and with no formal training whatsoever, he actually caught A squirrel. A squirrel. Now, you have to understand that this is in broad daylight. So he has a 5-foot wingspan. He's traveling at 25 miles an hour. You can nearly walk faster than Ernie's top speed. This squirrel had to be blind, daft, possibly dragging a leg up the side of the tree. He then fell out of the tree into the courtyard. And if you saw an owl scrapping with a squirrel, you'd want to have a look, wouldn't you? Everybody that was in the courtyard ran across to Ernie. I'm pretty sure he misunderstood their intentions. Maybe he thought they were going to nick his squirrel. I got there thinking there's the biggest fight in the world going on. And when I got there, there was a picture of tranquility. In the midst of all these people, Ernie had squeezed the squirrel to death with his big, powerful feet. And he'd actually swallowed the whole squirrel down in one go. The only reason that we knew it was a squirrel is because he had a big furry tail sticking out of the side of his mouth for about 4 hours until he gently went down into the melting pot. So we know that you can use your feet, Ernie. I'm going to give you one more chance to redeem yourself. This is for the pride of the bird show and all of the intensive training. You're leaning forward now. Here we go. Go, go, go. Shake as long as you want. I'll fill in for you. You are quite clearly the fattest owl in the world, Ernie. You're not really taking this job very seriously at all, are you? Let's give Ernie a big round of applause. You were absolutely rubbish. And I'm pretty sure that he doesn't care, that he's like, yeah, whatever. Oh my goodness, right. Okay, so we're going to pop Ernie in this box here, and I don't want you to think this is a punishment. This is just to stop Ernie from seeing the next bird that we're going to have a look at, as it will probably scare the living bejeebies out of him. It might well scare one or two of you guys as well, as I introduce you to Rosie, and Rosie is an Andean Condor. Now this really is a huge big bird. So if you're a normal Andean Condor, then you would normally jump off an Andean mountain, open those enormous wings, and the wind will lift you up into the air. But of course, we're not on an Andean mountain, and to show you an Andean Condor here at the castle, we had to build this launch platform here, and by using gravity and half a dozen wing beats, Rosie can just about get to the lowest point on the castle. Now, if it wasn't for the fact that we have the stepping stone arrangement heading up to the top of the castle, then Rosie, I'm pretty sure, could not get back from that lower point. If you came to the first show, you'll have seen that bone-eating vulture, the lammergeier, who's more than capable of charging around the sky all over the place. But this really is a massive gliding machine. It is actually my favourite bit of the show, actually. Every day, when the Condor jumps off there and flies towards that gate entrance, there's always someone that has no idea there's a bird show going on. They look up and see a pterodactyl at eye level, and they see people dive into the hedge and into the tree. Oh, it's funny, but she's always going to fly as low as she possibly can, and that's because, essentially, she's saving energy, and that is what it's all about. If you actually see this bird on the side of a mountain, then of course it is very, very spectacular. Just the tiniest breeze of air is enough to take it up into the heavens, and away it goes. And Rosie has spent 4 winters being battered by the wind and rain and hail and sleet and snow up in North Yorkshire, so she really is very, very good at doing what she's going to do. So, Rosie's story is actually really quite interesting as well, because Rosie actually came to the castle as an egg that quite literally was hatching. So we have a breeding pair of condors. I actually flew her father for 19 years up in the Yorkshire Dales. Amazing bird, beautiful wife, and every year they lay 2 eggs. And Rosie was actually a second egg. And I'll explain what being a second egg is all about in the world of eagles and vultures. Essentially, you are an insurance policy. So when the first egg is laid by the female bird, she sits upon it, and that starts the incubation process. But unlike a chicken that's going to lay an egg every day, a condor takes 2, 3, 4, sometimes even up to 10 days to produce that second egg. And that always means that the second egg is going to hatch 2, 3 or 4 days after the first. And if the first chick is doing well and feeding, it doesn't greet its sibling with open arms and love and affection. Essentially, what it does is bite the second chick, kill it, and that safeguards its food supply. And we've seen this happen many times over the year. We had a window of opportunity to take her, and we brought her up. Actually, in the wild, their mums and dads, they eat things like guanacas, llamas, dead seal or a whale washed up on the beach. They bring it back to the nest in a crop, and that could be 5 or 6 hours of transportation. So the meat that's inside them is already rotten, but it's already pre-digested, and the little baby condor will nibble the toes of the adult birds, waggle his wings like crazy, and they regurgitate this pre-digested soup of rotten meat. So to bring up Rosie here at the castle, we had to mince up rats and squirrels on a stove for several hours till they're very, 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 very smelly indeed. Bit of Yakult in there for probiotics and enzymes, and it took 9 months to get her to the side. Downside was she now thinks she's a human being, which won't incidentally stop her from breeding. We will be able to use artificial insemination. Ask your parents about that one on the journey home. And basically, all she ever wanted to do when we first started flying her is jump into the audience, nibble everybody's toes in a friendly kind of way, but it is a big and scary bird. So that's why she's been up to North Yorkshire, and she is amazing to see flying. And we have actually tried many things over the years, throwing her off the top of Guy's Tower and getting her to fly to Caesar's Tower and to Spy Tower and to the top of the mount. But because they actually lose such a lot of height to gain that running speed to begin with, then this sort of works for everybody, and you do get very close views at times. Sometimes a bit too close, as the saying goes. And she'll be 8 years before she's an adult bird, and then she'll be black and white by that stage. Let's give Rosie a really big round of applause. She does very, very well for us. So the last birds that we're going to have a look at in the show are going to be kites. And if you've travelled the highways and the byways in the UK and looked up into the sky, then usually there's a raptor or two around. And the one that you're going to see commonly is actually a buzzard. And buzzards are actually birds with broad wings and a roundish tail. Increasing in numbers now in the UK are kites, and kites come in all sorts of shapes and sizes. These are yellow-billed kites and black kites.
Pop the music on anyway. Well done.